The mahogany office gleamed under the soft amber light of the setting sun, casting long shadows across stacks of financial reports and contracts worth millions. Thomas Mitchell sat perfectly still in his leather chair, his breathing measured and deep, pretending to be asleep. His eyes were barely open, just enough to watch through his lashes as the office door creaked open. The safe behind his desk stood wide open, displaying neat bundles of cash that could change anyone's life forever. This was no accident. This was a test. A test that would reveal whether there was still any honesty left in a world that had disappointed him so deeply. At 45 years old, Thomas had built an empire from nothing. His technology company now employed thousands of people across the country. But success had come with a bitter price. Just 3 weeks ago, he had discovered that Marcus, his business partner of 15 years, and the man he had trusted like a brother, had stolen $3 million from the company. The betrayal had shattered something deep inside Thomas. If Marcus could betray him after all they had been through together, after Thomas had been the best man at his wedding and godfather to his children, then what hope was there for trusting anyone else? The safe test was his way of proving what he now believed to be true. Everyone had a price, and given the opportunity, everyone would take what wasn't theirs. Diana Williams pushed open the heavy office door with her cleaning cart, her movements careful and practiced after 2 years of night shifts at the company. Behind her, holding tightly to her mother's hand, was 6-year-old Jasmine. The little girl wore tiny pink cleaning gloves that Diana had bought her from the dollar store. A small gesture to make her daughter feel helpful during the long nights when school was closed and babysitters were too expensive. Jasmine's eyes were bright and curious, taking in the impressive office with its floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive furniture. She had been here many times before, but the grandness of it never failed to amaze her young mind. Diana immediately began her routine, starting with the bookshelves that lined the walls, carefully dusting each leather-bound volume and crystal award. Thomas watched through barely open eyes as Jasmine wandered closer to his desk. The child moved, with the natural curiosity of her age, her small feet making no sound on the thick carpet. When she saw the open safe and the money inside, her eyes widened with wonder. Thomas felt his heart rate increase. This was the moment. This innocent child, who clearly came from poverty based on her worn shoes and carefully mended dress, was about to prove his cynical worldview correct. He prepared himself for the disappointment for watching those small hands reach for bills that could buy her mother a car, pay their rent for years, or ensure she could go to college one day. The temptation must be overwhelming for someone who had so little. But Jasmine did something that made Thomas's carefully constructed wall of cynicism crack. She tilted her head, studying the money with a frown of concentration. Then, instead of grabbing handfuls of cash, she reached out with her tiny gloved hands and began organizing the bills. She separated the hundreds from the 50s, the 20s from the 10s, creating neat stacks with the kind of precision that would make any bank teller proud. Her movements were gentle and respectful, as if she understood the value of what she was handling but felt no desire to possess it. She hummed softly to herself, a children's song about counting, as she worked to make everything perfect. "Mommy," Jasmine whispered when she finished, her voice carrying clearly in the quiet office. Mr. Thomas's money was all messy. "I made it. Neat like you taught me with our penny jar at home. He works so hard, he deserves to have his things organized." Diana turned from the bookshelf, her eyes widening in alarm when she saw where her daughter was standing. She rushed over, her face flushed with worry. "Jasmine Marie Williams, you cannot touch Mr. Mitchell's things. That's not appropriate, baby." "We've talked about this," but Jasmine looked up at her mother with innocent confusion. "But Mama, it was messy. You always say we should help make things better when we can. I didn't take anything, I promise." I just made it pretty." Thomas felt something shift inside his chest, a warmth he hadn't experienced in years. This child, who probably had never held more than $20 at once in her entire life, had just organized hundreds of thousands of dollars without taking a single bill. More than that, she had done it as an act of kindness, wanting to help someone she barely knew simply because it was the right thing to do. Her mother's values, taught despite their obvious financial struggles, had created a moral foundation stronger than any amount of wealth could buy. Thomas continued to feign sleep as Diana gently led Jasmine away from the desk, explaining in hushed tones why they needed to respect other people's property and space. As the weeks passed, Thomas found himself deliberately staying late on the nights Diana worked, though he was careful to actually be asleep or absent when she arrived. He installed a discreet security camera in his office not to catch theft, but to observe the remarkable honesty of this mother and daughter. What he discovered through these observations changed his entire perspective on life. Diana worked with a dedication that put his executive staff to shame. She cleaned every surface with meticulous care, treating his office with more respect than some of his board members did. When Jasmine accompanied her, which was most nights during school breaks and holidays, the child would sit quietly in the corner, doing homework or reading books that were clearly from the library based on their worn covers. One night, the security camera captured a conversation that moved Thomas to tears. Jasmine had asked her mother why some people had so much money while they had so little. Diana had knelt down, taking her daughter's hands in hers, and said, "Baby, having money doesn't make someone better or worse than anyone else. What matters is what's in your heart. We might not have much, but we have our dignity, our kindness, and our honesty. Those are treasures no amount of money can buy. Mr. Mitchell works hard for his success, and we should respect that. But we work hard too, and our work has value, even if the world doesn't always see it that way." Thomas began to investigate Diana's background, using his resources to learn more about this remarkable woman. What he discovered humbled him further. Diana had grown up in the foster care system after losing both parents in a car accident when she was 9 years old. She had been moved between 7 different homes, some kind and some cruel. But she had never let the hardship break her spirit. She had fought to graduate high school while working part-time jobs, earning grades good enough for college, but never having the financial means to attend. At 22, she had become pregnant with Jasmine, and the father, a man who had promised her the world, had disappeared the moment he learned about the pregnancy. Since then, Diana had been raising Jasmine alone, working multiple jobs and refusing any form of charity that she felt she hadn't earned. The discovery that touched Thomas most deeply was learning about Diana's secret dream. She had been taking online courses whenever she could afford them, slowly working toward a degree in business administration. Her goal was to one day start a cleaning company that would employ single mothers, providing them with flexible schedules and fair wages so they could support their families without sacrificing time with their children. She had even written a business plan, which Thomas managed to see through a connection at the community college where she took classes. It was brilliant, showing an understanding of market needs and operational efficiency that many of his MBA holding executives couldn't match. Thomas decided to increase Diana's salary, instructing the Human Resources Department to classify it as a standard adjustment for her category of work. He was careful to make it seem routine, not wanting to draw attention to his special interest. But his actions did not go unnoticed. Richard Blackwood, the vice president of operations and son of one of the company's founding partners, brought it up during a board meeting. Richard was everything Thomas had grown to despise about inherited wealth: arrogant, entitled, and harboring barely concealed prejudices that he dressed up as business concerns. "Thomas, I've noticed some unusual payroll adjustments," Richard said, his tone dripping with false concern. particularly regarding certain members of our cleaning staff. One employee in particular seems to be receiving compensation well above market rate. Thomas kept his expression neutral, though anger simmered beneath the surface. All our employees are compensated fairly based on their performance and dedication. Richard. Diana Williams has been with us for 2 years without a single absence or complaint. She deserves every penny. Richard's face twisted into an ugly smirk. Diana Williams, the single mother who drags her child to work. Thomas, you need to understand certain realities about these people. Give them an inch, and they'll take a mile. It's in their nature. The racism in Richard's words was barely veiled, and Thomas felt his hands clench under the table. But Richard wasn't finished. Besides, having a child in our offices after hours is a liability. What kind of mother exposes her child to this environment? It shows poor judgment, lack of proper family planning. These people have children they can't afford and then expect special treatment. Thomas wanted to tell Richard about Jasmine's incredible honesty about Diana's work ethic that surpassed most of their executives. But he knew it would only make things worse for them. Richard had influence with the board, and his shares in the company gave him power Thomas couldn't simply dismiss. That evening, Thomas deliberately stayed late, knowing Diana would be working. He positioned himself in the break room, where he could observe without being obvious. What he witnessed made his blood boil. Richard had also stayed late, and when he encountered Diana in the hallway, his behavior was despicable. "Well, well, working late again, Diana." Richard's voice was condescending. "You know, there are other ways for a woman like you to make extra money. Ways that don't involve bringing your child into inappropriate situations." Diana's face remained composed, though Thomas could see her hands trembling slightly. "I'm just doing my job, Mr. Blackwood. My daughter is never any trouble, and she stays in designated areas." "Your daughter," Richard moved closer. "Invading Diana's personal space is a distraction. And frankly, your presence here after your little pay raise is becoming ... questionable. I wonder what Thomas would think if he knew how you've been manipulating his sympathy." Diana stepped back, her voice steady despite the threat in Richard's words. "I've never asked Mr. Mitchell for anything except the opportunity to work. Everything I have, I've earned." Richard laughed, an ugly sound that echoed in the empty hallway. "Earned? Please, people like you don't earn anything. You take advantage of liberal guilt and affirmative action. But I'm watching you, Diana. One mistake, one single error, and you're gone." After Richard left, Thomas watched Diana sink into a chair, her strong facade crumbling. She buried her face in her hands and cried silently, her shoulders shaking with suppressed sobs. Jasmine, who had been doing homework in the break room, ran to her mother and wrapped her small arms around her. "Mama, why was that man so mean? Did we do something wrong?" Diana wiped her tears quickly, forcing a smile for her daughter. "No, baby. Sometimes people are angry about things that have nothing to do with us. We just keep being good people. No matter what others say or do." Okay, man. He would not let Richard's prejudice and cruelty go unchallenged. But he needed to be smart about it to protect Diana and Jasmine, while also exposing Richard for who he truly was. He began documenting Richard's behavior, not just toward Diana, but toward all the minority employees in the company. What he discovered was a pattern of discrimination that had been overlooked or excused for years, because of Richard's position and connections. Meanwhile, Thomas started leaving small gifts in places where Diana would find them during her cleaning. A new children's book for Jasmine with a note saying it was from the company's education initiative. A gift card for groceries with a memo that it was an employee appreciation reward. He was careful to make everything seem official and impersonal, not wanting Diana to feel singled out or charitable. But he watched through the security cameras as her face lit up each time. As she showed Jasmine the books and explained how kindness could come from unexpected places. One night, Thomas decided to be genuinely present when Diana arrived for work. He pretended to have fallen asleep at his desk while working late, papers scattered around him to make it believable. The safe was open again, but this time with even more money visible, including some jewelry and important documents. He heard Diana and Jasmine enter, heard Diana's soft gasp of concern when she saw him. "Mr. Mitchell," she called softly. "You all right?" When he didn't respond, she approached carefully. "Jasmine, stay back, honey. Let me check if Mr. Mitchell is okay." Thomas felt Diana's gentle hand on his shoulder, shaking him lightly. He pretended to wake slowly, blinking in confusion. "Diana, what time is it?" His eyes went immediately to the open safe, watching her reaction. Diana's eyes followed his, and she stepped back immediately. "Mr. Mitchell, your safe is open. I haven't touched anything, I promise." "Jasmine, did you go near Mr. Mitchell's desk?" Jasmine shook her head solemnly. "No, Mama, but I can organize it again if Mr. Thomas wants. I'm good at making money. Neat." Thomas couldn't help but smile at the child's innocent offer. He stood up, stretched, and then did something that surprised even himself. He walked over to Jasmine and knelt down to her level. "You know what, Jasmine? I could use a helper. Would you like to help me count this money and put it away properly?" The little girl's eyes lit up with excitement, but she looked at her mother for permission. Diana seemed uncertain, but Thomas nodded reassuringly. "It's okay, Diana. I trust her. I trust both of you." For the next hour, Thomas and Jasmine counted money together while Diana cleaned. Thomas taught Jasmine about different denominations, about saving and investing, turning it into an educational game. The child was quick to learn, asking intelligent questions that revealed a sharp mind hungry for knowledge. "Mr. Thomas, Jasmine asked as they worked, 'Why do you have so much money?' It was an innocent question, but Thomas found himself thinking carefully about his answer. "I worked very hard for many years, Jasmine. But you know what? Having money isn't the most important thing." "What is?" she asked, her big eyes curious. Thomas glanced at Diana, who was pretending not to listen while she cleaned. "Being honest. Being kind, treating people with respect. Those things are worth more than all the money in this safe." Jasmine nodded seriously. "That's what Mama says too. She says our hearts are our real treasure." Thomas felt that warmth in his chest again. "Your mama is a very wise woman, Jasmine. You're lucky to have her." The little girl beamed. "I know. She's the best mama in the whole world. She works super hard so I can go to a good school someday." As they finished putting the money away, Thomas made another decision. He pulled out a smaller stack of bills and handed it to Jasmine. "This is for you for helping me tonight." Jasmine's eyes widened, but she shook her head. "I can't take that, Mr. Thomas. Mama says we don't take money we didn't earn properly." Thomas was impressed by the child's integrity. "But you did earn it. You helped me organize and count. That's real work." Jasmine looked at her mother again, and Diana came over. Her expression conflicted. "Mr. Mitchell, that's very generous, but we can't accept." Thomas held up his hand. "Diana, your daughter just spent an hour teaching me something valuable. She taught me that there are still people in this world who value honesty over money. That lesson is worth more than what I'm offering. Please, let me pay her for her time and her teaching." Diana's eyes filled with tears. She understood that this was about more than money. It was about respect, about recognition of their worth as people. She nodded slowly. "What do you say, Jasmine?" "Thank you, Mr. Thomas." Jasmine said, carefully taking the money. "I'm going to save it for college, just like Mama's saving for my future." Thomas stood up, his mind made up about something that had been forming for weeks. "Diana, can you come to my office tomorrow morning? There's something important I'd like to discuss with you." Diana looked worried. "Am I in trouble, Mr. Mitchell?" "No," Thomas assured her. "Quite the opposite. I have a business proposition for you." The next morning, Diana arrived at Thomas's office wearing her best clothes. Clearly nervous, but trying to appear confident. Thomas had prepared everything carefully. On his desk were the papers he had drawn up with his legal team. "Diana, I've been watching you work for 2 years. Your dedication, your attention to detail, your integrity, they're exceptional. I also know about your business plan for a cleaning company that employs single mothers." Diana's face flushed. "How did you?" "That's not important," Thomas said gently. "What's important is that it's a brilliant idea. I want to invest in it. I want to make you a partner in a new venture." Diana sank into the chair across from him, stunned. "Mr. Mitchell, I don't understand. I'm just a cleaning lady. I don't have a degree. I don't have experience running a business." Thomas leaned forward. "Diana, you have something more valuable than any degree. You have integrity, work ethic, and an understanding of what people like you need. Single mothers are an untapped workforce full of dedicated, hardworking people who just need flexibility and fair treatment. Your business plan addresses a real need, and I want to help you make it happen." "But why?" Diana asked, tears streaming down her face. "Why would you do this for me?" Thomas was quiet for a moment, then told her about the safe test, about watching Jasmine organize the money without taking any, about how it had restored his faith in humanity. "Your daughter's honesty, which comes from your teaching, showed me that I had become cynical and cold. You both reminded me that success means nothing if we don't lift others up with us." Diana was sobbing now, overwhelmed by the opportunity being offered. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Thomas said simply. "Let me help you build something that will not only change your life and Jasmine's, but will help hundreds of other single mothers provide for their families with dignity." Diana nodded, unable to speak through her tears. Thomas handed her the contracts. "Take these to a lawyer, have them reviewed. I want you to be protected and to understand everything. This is a real partnership, Diana. You'll own 60% of the company. I'm just the investor." As Diana looked through the papers with shaking hands, Thomas added, "There's one more thing. Richard Blackwood will be leaving the company. His discriminatory behavior toward you and other employees has been documented, and the board has agreed to buy out his shares. You'll never have to deal with him again." Diana looked up, shocked. "You did that for me?" "I did it for the company," Thomas corrected. "We can't have people like him poisoning our culture. But yes, I also did it for you and Jasmine. You deserve to work in an environment where you're respected." The news of Richard's departure and Diana's new position spread quickly through the company. Some were shocked, others inspired. But Thomas noticed a change in the atmosphere. People seemed more hopeful, more willing to work hard, knowing that merit and character were being recognized over connections and prejudice. The cleaning company, which Diana named Second Chances Cleaning Services, launched 6 months later with Thomas's investment and guidance. Diana insisted on hiring not just single mothers, but anyone who needed a second chance. Former addicts in recovery, ex-convicts trying to rebuild their lives, immigrants struggling to find work. The company grew rapidly, landing contracts with major corporations that wanted to support its mission. Diana proved to be a natural leader, her years of hardship having taught her empathy and practical problem-solving skills that no business school could provide. She implemented innovative policies like on-site childcare for employees' children, flexible scheduling around school hours, and a profit-sharing program that ensured everyone benefited from the company's success. Jasmine flourished in the new environment. With financial stability, she could attend a better school and participate in activities she had only dreamed of before. But more importantly, she watched her mother transform from a tired, struggling single parent into a confident business owner who was changing lives. The lesson wasn't lost on the young girl. Hard work, honesty, and kindness could indeed overcome any obstacle. 1 year after the launch of Second Chances, Thomas attended the company's first anniversary celebration. The event was held in a community center in Diana's old neighborhood, decorated with balloons and streamers made by the children of employees. As Thomas entered, he was overwhelmed by the sight of hundreds of people whose lives had been changed by Diana's vision and his investment. Women who had been on welfare were now earning living wages. Children who had been in daycare were in after-school programs. Families that had been broken by poverty were healing. Diana took the stage, radiant in a business suit that represented how far she had come. A year ago, I was cleaning offices at night, bringing my daughter with me because I couldn't afford childcare. I thought that was going to be my life forever. But then someone saw value in me that I didn't even see in myself. She looked directly at Thomas. Mr. Mitchell didn't just invest money in this company. He invested faith in the idea that people deserve second chances, that circumstances don't define capability, and that honesty and hard work should be rewarded regardless of where someone comes from. The crowd erupted in applause, and Thomas felt tears rolling down his cheeks. But the moment that truly broke him came when Jasmine, now 7 years old, took the microphone. "I want to thank Mr. Thomas for believing in my mama. But I also want to thank him for teaching me something important. He told me that being honest and kind is worth more than all the money in the world. He proved that by helping my mama even, though we couldn't give him anything back. That's why I want to be like both of them when I grow up, successful enough to help others and kind enough to see the good in everyone." The room fell silent for a moment before bursting into thunderous applause. Thomas made his way through the crowd to Diana and Jasmine, embracing them both. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for saving me from becoming someone I wouldn't have been able to look at in the mirror." Diana smiled through her tears. "We saved each other, Thomas. That's what good people do." As the celebration continued around them, Thomas reflected on how a simple test of honesty had led to this moment. He had set out to prove that everyone could be corrupted by money. But instead, a 6-year-old girl with pink gloves had proven that integrity couldn't be bought or sold. The company continued to grow, eventually expanding to 5 cities and employing over 1,000 people. Diana became a speaker at business conferences, sharing her story and advocating for inclusive employment practices. She established a scholarship fund for children of single parents, ensuring that kids like Jasmine would have access to education regardless of their circumstances. Thomas remained an active partner, but he knew the success belonged to Diana. She had taken his investment and multiplied it not just financially, but in human terms that no spreadsheet could capture. Years later, when Jasmine graduated as valedictorian from her high school, she spoke about the night that changed everything. "When I was 6, I organized money in a safe because my mama taught me to leave things better than I found them. I didn't know that simple act would lead to my mother becoming a business owner and hundreds of families finding stability. But that's the power of doing the right thing. You never know who's watching or how one moment of integrity can create ripples that change the world." Thomas, sitting in the audience with Diana, thought about his old partner Marcus, who had stolen from him, about Richard, who had tried to destroy Diana with his prejudice, about all the disappointments that had nearly turned him into someone bitter and distrustful. Then he looked at Diana, successful and gracious, at Jasmine, brilliant and heading to Harvard on a full scholarship, at all the families whose lives had been transformed because one little girl had chosen honesty over easy money. "You know," Diana said quietly, noticing his contemplative mood, "I never thanked you properly for that night. For testing us, I mean. Thomas looked at her in surprise. You knew? Diana smiled. Nobody leaves a safe open with that much money. By accident, Thomas. And nobody sleeps that soundly in an office chair. But I understood why you did it. Trust is hard when you've been betrayed, and you weren't angry, Thomas asked. Diana shook her head. How could I be angry? Yotes gave. Use the opportunity to show who we really were, and that opportunity changed everything. As Jasmine received her diploma, Thomas realized that the title of this story, Billionaire Pretends to Sleep to Test Black Maid's Kid, and freezes, seeing what she does, had become something so much more. It had become a testament to the power of integrity, the importance of second chances, and the truth that sometimes the smallest acts of honesty can transform not just individual lives, but entire communities. The billionaire who had pretended to sleep had awakened to a truth more valuable than all his wealth, that there are still good people in the world, and when you find them, you don't test them, you invest in them, you believe in them, and you let them show you that humanity's capacity for goodness is infinite when given the chance to flourish. The safe that had once held mere money now held something far more precious in Thomas's memory. The image of a little girl in pink gloves, carefully organizing bills she would never take, teaching a cynical billionaire that wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the integrity we maintain when no one is watching and the lives we transform when someone finally is. And in the end, that lesson was worth more than every dollar in that safe, every share in his company, and every success he had achieved. Because Jasmine and Diana hadn't just passed his test, they had taught him what it truly meant to be wealthy in the ways that actually matter. As the ceremony ended and families gathered to celebrate, Thomas watched Diana and Jasmine embracing, surrounded by employees from Second Chances who had come to support them. He thought about writing a check for Jasmine's college expenses, but he knew Diana would insist she had already saved enough through the company's success. That was who they were, people who earned their way, who took help when offered, but never charity, who turned opportunities into movements that lifted entire communities. Richard Blackwood's replacement on the board had been a woman named Patricia Chen, a self-made entrepreneur who had started her career as a hotel housekeeper. She understood Diana's vision implicitly and had helped secure additional contracts that allowed Second Chances to expand nationally. The ripple effects of that night when Jasmine organized the money had spread far beyond what anyone could have imagined. Thomas's company had become known for its progressive employment practices, attracting top talent who wanted to work for an organization that valued character over connections. The story could have ended there, with success and transformation and lessons learned. But life, Thomas had discovered, wasn't about endings, it was about continuations, about how one act of integrity leads to another, creating an endless chain of positive change. Jasmine would go on to study business and social justice, eventually returning to expand Second Chances into an international operation. Diana would be recognized by the president for her contributions to economic equality, though she would always insist she was just a mother who had been given a chance. And Thomas would spend the rest of his career seeking out other Dianas and Jasmines, other people whose integrity and potential were overlooked because of their circumstances. He established the Mitchell Foundation for Economic Justice, funding hundreds of small businesses owned by people from disadvantaged backgrounds. But he always returned to that night, to the image of those small hands in pink gloves organizing money that could have solved all their problems, choosing honesty instead. Because in the end, that's what the story of Billionaire Pretends to Sleep to Test Black Maid's Kid and Freezes, seeing what she does, was really about. It wasn't about the money or the test or even the success that followed. It was about the moment when cynicism met innocence, when prejudice met dignity, when despair met hope. It was about discovering that the true measure of a person isn't in what they take when no one's watching, but in what they give, what they organize, what they make better, simply because it's the right thing to do. The safe still sits in Thomas's office, now permanently closed, holding not money but a framed photo of that night's security footage. A little girl in pink gloves, carefully organizing bills while her mother cleans in the background, neither of them knowing they're about to change the world. And every time Thomas looks at it, he remembers that wealth isn't about what you have, it's about what you do with it, who you lift up with it, and how you use it to prove that integrity, honesty, and kindness are the only currencies that truly matter in the end.